Hello, my name is Ted Holsey. I'm Vice President of Marketing at eFolder and your host for today's event. Welcome to the eFolder Expert Series. This webinar series brings together experts from eFolder's partner community and staff for deep dive technical discussions. The topic for today is Tech How-To using the eFolder BDR Rescue Program with Zenith BDRs. Today we are joined by Tom Brown, one of eFolder's support engineers who has years of experience working with both Zenith and eFolder BDR deployments. Before we go through the agenda, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who attended the event. With over 90 people registered for today's session, we have put all participants in listen-only mode. You can enjoy the audio portion of today's event by either streaming it to your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout today's webinar. We have planned a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit them as we go along, and we will try to address your questions on the fly. Now let me introduce Tom. Tom Brown is a support engineer with eFolder and has over 25 years of experience in the IT sector. Tom spent 18 years with the New Mexico Department of Public Safety and was their lead IT engineer. Immediately before joining eFolder, Tom worked at an eFolder partner where he spent several years managing both Zenith and eFolder BDR deployments. Tom joined the eFolder team in May of this year. Welcome, Tom, and thank you for joining us to the eFolder Expert Series.
Thank you.
All right, let's go through the agenda real quick. What I'm going to do is just quickly touch base for everyone's benefit on what the eFolder BDR Rescue Program actually is. How does the program work? And then I'm going to share our view of some of the choices that partners have in terms of dealing with their legacy Zenith BDRs that are already out in the field. And then I'm going to turn the call over to Tom, and he's going to do a technical discussion of how to actually use the BDR Rescue Program in your own installed base of clients. And again, I want to remind you, please ask questions as we go along, and we will try to address them on the fly. So first of all, kind of what is the BDR Rescue Program? The BDR Rescue Program is designed primarily for eFolder partners that have legacy Zenith BDR deployments that are out in the field. There's a lot of reasons partners would want to kind of a plan B for legacy BDRs that are out in the field. Number one, it's no secret Zenith as a company is having a wide range of challenges out there, and so partners are obviously concerned about the future viability of that organization. But just as importantly, hardware investments are large, whether the client is making them or the partner has made them, and those sorts of investments need to be planned for, and hardware upgrades aren't free. So if you've got legacy Zenith BDRs in the field, it's not always just a simple snap your fingers and put in $3,000 to $4,000 new appliance. Those things need to be planned for, and it needs to fit with the business model or the cash flow situation of either the partner or the client. So a lot of partners we know that we've talked to over the years, they want a plan B. They want somewhere safe to store their offsite images, and while they plan for the eventual hardware upgrade of their legacy Zenith BDR deployments. So what does the eFolder BDR Rescue Program offer? Well, it offers partners a place to safely store and point your existing offsite backups to the eFolder storage cloud as a plan B, as an interim step for eventual migration of those units. What's great about it is you don't need to forklift upgrade the units. You don't need to roll trucks on site. All of the work you can do on the appliances you can do remotely. And you don't need, of course, to make an expensive hardware upgrade at this time. And so recognizing the kind of sticky situation some partners are in, eFolder has put in place a very attractive savings offer, which allows you to back up these offsite images at only 15 cents per gig per month, no matter how long you leave that BDR appliance in place. And so, we're of course giving a very aggressive offer, and this is the kind of the lowest pricing you'll ever see from eFolder, and it's really specific only to these sorts of situations. But it gives you a very viable plan B where you can safely protect your client data in the eFolder cloud while you figure out what the migration strategy is for those legacy BDRs. And what we've often seen with either new partners to eFolder who are migrating to us from Zenith, or eFolder partners that have some legacy Zenith BDRs in the field, what you see over time is you'll see the immediate increase of this BDR Rescue Program revenue under this particular service plan with eFolder, and then over time that number will slowly go down. And what you'll see in turn is the other eFolder service revenue line items going up over time, and eventually they cross, and eventually the BDR Rescue Program revenue goes away. And we're totally comfortable with that. We totally understand that this is the natural migration of things. And what I want to capture on the next slide is kind of the choices that partners really have if you've got legacy Zenith BDRs in the field. First of all, you could choose to do nothing. That's always an option. We don't think it's the best option. The other options you have, of course, is you can do an immediate forklift upgrade if the client is growing, if they've outgrown the hardware, if there's not enough capacity on the device, if you don't have sufficient capacity storage or RAM capacity to virtualize the servers, then a forklift upgrade makes a heck of a lot of sense. And eFolder has two different BDR product lines, eFolder BDR for ShadowProtect and eFolder BDR for Aperture, that you can choose from as a potential upgrade option. Now, the third option you have is really to buy yourself time. And one part of buying yourself time is using the BDR Rescue Program, leaving that in place for some amount of time, and then maybe doing an upgrade, a forklift upgrade sometime down the road. Or potentially your other option is you can repurpose the hardware that's in place and then use what we call the eFolder Cloud for ShadowProtect. This is our service plan for any scenario where a partner is, quote-unquote, building their own BDR. So if you're repurposing a Zenith box, or you're putting out, a new HP server as your preferred BDR hardware appliance, you would use this particular service plan, the eFolder Cloud for ShadowProtect, or potentially you can just use the eFolder supplied hardware, software, and services together in a logical bundle. So really what we're going to focus on today is this option of really buying yourself time and how to use this program with your legacy Zenith BDR appliances. So with that, let me turn the floor over to Tom, and he's going to walk us through on how technically a partner would follow the correct steps to do this successfully.
Thanks, Ted. Good afternoon, everyone. Please forgive me. This is my first time doing a webinar, so if I stumble, I will go back and fix whatever I may have missed. This first slide and all of the slides from this point forward were taken from our eFolder adaptation guide for BDRs from third-party vendors. If anybody wants a copy of that, I believe Ted is going to provide that at the end of the webinar as well. The first slide assumes that you are already backing up and that you already have a ShadowProtect agent on a server or device that you're backing up. The first thing that you're going to want to do, and we're using, like I said, the slides were built from a Zenith BDR. The first thing you want to do is you want to create a new destination. And the reason you want to do this, and let me go forward a couple of slides just to, let me hide this. There we go. Okay. Let me go forward a couple of slides because I need to show you what we want to change. This is one of the most important things with ShadowProtect and bare metal backups. And what I've seen in the past is when you go to change a Zenith job or a ShadowProtect job that you've already created, the Zenith software, their version 3.5.2, I believe it is, will not let you change this. The default backups are weekly. If you can change this, you can skip to this point. But this is one of the most important steps is you have to have continuous incrementals. Let me go back and where we were. So if you are unable to change that particular section when you go in and you do change the scheduling, what you're going to need to do is you're going to take your existing backups or create a new directory if you don't archive off the existing backups, and you're going to need to create a new destination. In this case, I called it, I used the D drive, I called it Backup Zenith Client. Use the correct credentials, and by the way, you do want to use a UNC path, not a mapped drive, because this is actually, what you're doing is you're building the job on the agent that you're connected to. So you're going to put in the correct credentials. Hopefully you're using an admin account. We do recommend that you use a domain admin account so that you get the correct permissions. Once you've built this in, and we'll go like that, and I'm going the wrong way. I'm not. Once you've built the destination, then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new job. The new job, of course, you're going to have here, you're going to do hit next. If you have existing jobs, you should copy the data to an external drive. All right, we're going to do next. All right. It's going to automatically, you got to pick the drive that you want to connect or the volumes that you want to back up on the agent. You click next. And at this point, it's going to automatically pick up the destination that you entered in the first step. That way, it knows where it's going to put it, and it's going to verify it. Then we come to this point here where we're going to add the schedule. This is what I was talking about as far as the original, how Zenith normally does it. They normally do it on a weekly basis. And this is how it would look by default if you just hit next. So what we do is we take and we remove this upper section here is for a full backup one time every day at the same time. We're going to be doing continuous incrementals, which will include the first backup. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the check mark from Sunday, put it down here on Sunday under incremental backups. If you deem it necessary, change this to Saturday, or you can click on Saturday too. I don't know if your customers work on Saturdays or not. The next thing you're going to do is check the scheduling. This is normally the normal business hours that you're going to be backing up all of the incremental changes. We recommend that you take and make the business hours for the backups 1 hour before and 1 hour after the normal business hours, just so that you can catch those stragglers that come in before and after work and any changes they may make. Go ahead and click next, and this is what it will look like. You're going to use VSS, which is standard. Let me catch up here. So here we're doing a backup every hour, and you're going to be doing 13 a day based on this calendar schedule. Next, you're going to pick the compression method you want. We recommend standard. That's just a recommendation. And if you, let me go back one. If you wish to password protect the and encrypt the backup so that nobody can get to them, you can check these, and it will ask you for a password to encrypt those backup images. We do not recommend that you split the image files. All right, we click next. Now you have a schedule ready to run. At this point, you can start your backup and let it run. The next thing in the configuration that you want to set up is Image Manager. Whatever version of BDR you have, in this case Zenith, they will allow it to, some BDRs, some of the rescue programs, we do more than just Zenith, but some of the BDRs won't allow you to change the Image Manager scheduling. It's very important, and let me find the right screen here. Extremely important is the retention. What we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to connect to the Image Manager service, leave the password blank, and we're going to edit the policy and the change and the default that this is what the default that Zenith uses is 314 and 35. We're going to change the default retention policy to meet our minimum standards so that you have a full bare metal backup that you can restore from. We recommend that you have a minimum of 7, 35, and 35. This will give you 35 daily collapses that you can, we can do a restoration from. And we also recommend that you click on the Keep Redundant Collapsed Files. These are very important steps. These are very important settings, I should say, in this step that you need to be successful in having good backups. Finally, this is what it's going to look like after you've done your image manager view. It's going to show you that we've changed the schedule. It's going to run it 5 minutes after midnight. It's going to happen one time, and the retention period is going to be 7, 35, and 35. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to download the eFolder software. If you have your own brand, if you've already created a brand with eFolder, you can download your brandable software. It'll have your logo, etc. here. In this case, I've done it with the generic download. You want to ensure that you get the, well, let me back up a minute, I'm sorry. Before you download the software, you want to create an account. When you create an account, in this case with eFolder, you're going to use new customer because you're doing it for a new customer. This is not based on your partner account. It's going to be, in this case, I'm using a generic brand, and you can add it, you're not going to add it as a partner because this is for a customer's BDR. Then you're going to fill out the service plan. In this case, it's very important you pick a BDR Rescue Program service plan. And when you're ready to do this step, if you need help, you just call support or open up a support session, and we'll help you work through this at least the first couple of times. You want to put the referring partner if you have one. You want to put, this is all of the information you're going to put for the account that's going to connect to our data centers. Okay, next. All right, then we're going to download the software. You're going to go up here to support, and it's going to give you the option to download. You're going to pick the operating system that you're going to download for. Most of the BDRs that I've seen, the older BDRs that I've seen, are AMD processors. So you're going to want to pick a 64-bit, the second option, Windows 64-bit. And it'll tell you, if you download the wrong one, you try and install it, it'll tell you what you should use. Next, you're going to scroll down, and you're going to agree to comply with the U.S. international laws, et cetera, and you're going to click download. After you download, pick a location. We usually download the software so we have it in case something happens and we need to re-load it for any reason. So we're going to save it. Then it's going to do the normal installation process. You really can take the defaults from that point forward. The most important being, and let me go back one slide, is with the Zenith BDRs, you have a very small C partition. You're going to run out of space very quickly. You want to load it to the D partition, just like you see in this slide, D online backups. After you load, then this is where you're actually going to connect to the eFolder data centers, to the eFolder cloud where you're going to replicate the data. Let me find my right slide here. All right, so the first thing you do is you're going to add in the account credentials that you previously created, the account name and the password. You're going to test the connection. After that's done, the next thing you need to do is you need to create your passphrase. The passphrase is a very important if you were to lose your password and you need to do a restoration, you're going to need the passphrase. The passphrase needs to be saved, it needs to be known, it needs to be very high level, because what happens is the data that's sent to the data center is encrypted for your safety and your customer safety. That way, neither anyone in eFolder or anyone else can ever get to that data. Without that passphrase, you're not going to be able to restore that data from us. So that's why when you do this, it's going to actually, you're going to create a very long passphrase. Anything you want it to be, you just have to remember that it's case sensitive and space sensitive, and it has to have the right numbers, letters, make it as unique as possible. It's also going to ask you for 3 security questions. Well, it's going to ask you for security questions. You have to have at least 3 security questions at a minimum. I think you can have like 15 security questions if you really want to have super secure system. After that's all done, you're going to go in here and you're going to change the default options. These options are to keep historical versions. At a minimum, you have to keep 7 days of historical versions. It'll keep a minimum of 1 version, and the -1 means it'll keep a infinite number of versions based on the number of days to keep. What this means is if you say you did this for 1 year, a lot of people set the number of days to keep to 1 year. If you had this at 365 days and a file changed once a week, you would have, now let me back up, that's for our, you would have 52 versions of that file if it changed every week. In your case, you're not going to have any changes when it comes to the incrementals and the images, because every day you're going to have a new image written. Next, all right, next one you want to make sure that you have on the backup tab, on the backup tab you want to set the full backup path to the SB run. The problem here is Zenith changes where it puts the SB run. So if you click here, it'll give you the option to go find it. It's generally in the program files x86, vendor specific. In this case, it'll be Zenith, and then whatever the subdirectory is under there. And you want to do the same thing for Image Manager. That way, our program knows where to look for their software. These next 2 slides, which I apologize, they're a little small, but this is for your parameters as desired. On the Notifications tab, you can set the notifications to do whatever you want it to do. You want to do a pop-up on the screen of the BDR. You want to send an email to you. Then you would have to fill out the email section, and the SMTP server, etc. And it would send you an email of the alerts. On the bandwidth tabs, just so that you understand, after hours, you're going to set the day hours, say 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. That means that during this time, it's going to throttle down to the I can't see that very well. It's going to be usage mode during business hours. So this one is set at medium. Medium is set for 250 kbps. That's all it's going to upload during the business hours. After 7 p.m., it's going to go to high, which means it's going to auto-throttle, not start over. It's going to auto-throttle the bandwidth, and it's going to be all you can eat if you make this max. At high, it's only going to be at 1,000 kbps or 1 meg. You can adjust these as you see fit. That's your based on your bandwidth, your customer's bandwidth, and how fast you want to get things moved off. Let me see here if next slide. Okay. One thing we do recommend after you've done a backup, if you have 50 gigabytes or greater of data, we want you to do a preload, and that's basically a C drive that you send to us, and we'll send you the instructions on how to do it. You'll send the data to us, and then we'll copy it to your data center. That way you don't have to send off 50 gigabytes or more. We had one customer the other day had 7 terabytes of data they needed to seed up to the BDR or to the data center. The next tab is our advanced tab, and you just in here we want to keep our software up to date, and our software generally does not auto reboot the system. It will tell you when a reboot has to happen. So we want you to check to install updates automatically and to treat minor versions as major, just so that it does the minor versions. Alrighty. Finally, what we're going to do is we're going to add the folders. You're going to click on the folders selection on the left-hand side of our software. And you're going to do add. It's going to give you your system tree. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick the folder that we created in the destination. I've got to stop clicking. It's not a clickable window. And you're going to move it over to the right, and you're going to tell it that's what you want to back up. So in this case, we moved backup over. It's going to back up everything under it. If I have more than one server under here being backed up, then it would be multiple directories that will be backed up. Finally, we're going to go in here, and you're going to drop down the policy to backup ShadowProtect images. We have a preset policy that knows what it's supposed to exclude so that it doesn't send that information or those bogus files off to us at the data center. It'll include everything, and then this is hierarchical, so it's going to go like a filter down. And it's going to say include everything, exclude temp, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You don't need to worry about any of the timing because we've already set that in the global policies. And now we're going to set up the schedule. With the remote backups, the way we want it to run is you're going to do your ShadowProtect backups throughout the day, 7 to 7. Image Manager is going to take and it's going to collapse those intradailies and those dailies and those weeklies, whatever the time frame is, the calendar dated time it is. Then, and that's normally at midnight. We usually set our Image Manager to run at midnight. It doesn't take very long. We then recommend that you set your update or your upload to us at 1 a.m. That way, Image Manager's finished. There's no backups being going on, and you want to do it every day, just so that everybody, in case somebody comes in again and works on the weekends. You want to wake the computer just in case they've set the computer to go to sleep or go into some kind of a hibernation. And you want to save it. And this only happens one time. If there's a lot of data, of course, it's going to keep running until it's finished. We're going to do an initial backup. And as you can see here, backups can be started immediately over the network on the systems page. Or you can follow the KB article to perform a USB preload. This is what I was talking about, sending us a drive. And like I said, we recommend any backups over 50 gigabytes that you send on a preload drive, because not a lot of people have fiber to their offices. It's got to be tracked, and this knowledge base does tell you exactly how to get to this information. And every time you do this, you need to open up a support ticket. One of the things that's most critical when we're doing a preload is we put your system in, your BDR into maintenance mode. And what that does is it basically stops the software from sending us any incrementals while you're shipping a disk, the disk to us, so that we don't have data that shouldn't be up there before we get your seed drive. All right. It says if you already have ShadowProtect backup images files before changing the Image Manager retention policies, it will take 21 days before the chain of incrementals is complete in our data center. If you're worried about data loss during this time period, manually use the Visualize button on the folders page in the Backup Manager, and it'll tell you Manually use in the Backup Manager and include all of the CWs, and that's for collapse weekly. CM is for collapse monthly. If the BDR has already been in production for over a year, we highly recommend moving the existing backup images or deleting them and basically archiving off the data. When eFolder backups, when eFolder offsite backups run, it will perform several integrity checks. It makes sure that there's a recent ShadowProtect backup for each SPF file. SPF is for ShadowProtect full, in case you didn't know that. It makes sure that the consolidation is occurring properly and there is a recent consolidated image, and making sure the backup chains are complete. If anything fails, it will throw an error into the log. It won't necessarily stop based on, depending on what the error is, it won't necessarily stop the backup from happening unless it's catastrophic. On our web page, and I do not have a slide for this, when you get set up with eFolder, you'll have a web portal. The web portal has all of your information and the ability for you to view logs. You can do everything remotely in one location, except for actually physically touch the BDR or remotely touch the BDR. You can look at the logs, you can put it in maintenance mode, you can add licensing, you can basic management type, administrative type management. And this tells you how to do that. The online backup software will by default try to send a notification to us if there is an error and if you have set up notification to you. That way we both get it, but we will always get the notifications and the logs for that day, for that backup every time. And again, there's our support information. Anytime you need to call us, we're available 24 hours a day for emergencies. And I hope I was informational. I apologize for stumbling over my tongue. Like I said, this is the first time I've done this, and I'll turn it back over to Ted.
Okay, Tom, let's go into the Q&A log here and grab a couple questions. Bob makes a comment. Maybe you could just comment on it. I think kind of back in the beginning, he said, "This is correct. We just did one. Delete existing job and make a new shared folder in the D directory. Otherwise, Zenith deletes subfolders under the original." Can you comment on me? Is that important?
That's correct, and that's why. Yeah, I'm sorry, and that's correct. That's why I said in the beginning you need to set up a new destination. We also, just so you know, there's a special folder on the eFolder or under the Zenith, the way they use it, and it's on the D drive. It's called cleanup. We do not. That's where they usually move all of their incrementals and things that we normally just get rid of. But yes, you are correct. I recommend that you start, even though we say in this folder here, this slide here, let me go back one here, even though we say after a year, if it's been in production for a year, in this case, I recommend that you set up a new directory and that you do a new base, and that way you're not dealing with Zenith messing with your files.
Okay. I think Bob had one other comment. He said, "We also did not know that the AD admin credentials and had to use an account we added through Kaseya." Is that?
I'm not sure the AD credentials. Active Directory?
Yeah, I think that's what he meant, right?
That may be specific. If you don't know the active, hopefully you're in with your customers and you're managing their environment. Most of the partners we've dealt with, they manage most of their environment, not just their backups. They can create a backup account for you if you do not know the AD admin. As long as it is a AD admin that they create, we recommend highly that you use an AD admin, a domain admin, so that you can get to all of the data that needs to be done, because you're going to be going across into their domain. The agent is going to be in their domain.
Okay, a couple other questions. Dave wants to know, does the BDR have to have a specific version of ShadowProtect installed?
Well, that's an interesting question. The reason I say that is by default, and in this case, the BDR that we're using is an older, well, it's not even really that old. Zenith doesn't do a very good job of updating their software. Most of the BDRs you'll find are version 3.5.2. The way this program is designed is for you to continue to use their software. If you wish to upgrade the software, which we recommend at eventually happening, the current version is version 5 of ShadowProtect, version 6 of Image Manager, and then our backup software is automatically going to be up to date. If you're running version 3, you're quite a few back, and there are bugs. And you also have Zenith hooks into that software. So yes, there is no required version. That's the easy answer. The tough answer is, do you want to upgrade? If you do, we can facilitate that for you.
Okay, and then Dave asked a question of kind of a follow-on or related question. What other costs are involved beyond the 15 cents per gig, contracts, fees, restore, recovery? And so let me try to tackle that one. I mean, first of all, to have access to this program, you do need to join the eFolder Partner Program. To join the eFolder Partner Program, you need to do two things. You need to sign an agreement, which is a contract, and you need to make a $100 a month minimum commitment to eFolder. Of $100 wholesale revenue to eFolder a month. Now, you can get a ramp on that as well, like a 3 to 4 month ramp, and just work with your partner consultant on that particular topic. But those are our only real requirements from a partnership perspective is you need to have a minimum level of revenue with eFolder, and you need to sign the partner agreement. Other than that, and I'll try to tackle a couple other questions here. So there were a couple other questions that said, can we do a cloud recovery once these images are backed up to the eFolder cloud? And the answer is yes. The service that we let partners utilize to do a cloud-based recovery is what we call the eFolder Continuity Cloud. And it's an on-demand cloud recovery resource that you can invoke when and if you need it. You only pay for it when and if you need it, and it starts at $150 a week wholesale to your partner organization. You can recover one client there, 2 clients there, more. The limiting factor is the amount of RAM and storage you need for those particular recoveries. So you may need to step from the medium-sized recovery node to a large, but in principle, we only charge you $150 a week wholesale for that medium node. And you can then recover, do a cloud-based recovery. So those are so really the simple answer to the question is there's really no other cost other than 15 cents per gig. If you ever needed to do a cloud-based recovery, there are additional costs, and I just reviewed those. And then the terms and conditions of the eFolder Partner Agreement are very simple to understand, and they're month to month. And we just require that you maintain a minimum of $100 wholesale revenue with eFolder per month. So Dave, hopefully that answers all your questions there. This is kind of a technical question for Tom. Warren wants to know, how do we stop uploading to the Zenith cloud? I mean, is that possible, or how does that work?
Well, once, and unfortunately, and this was, I'm not sure if you understand this, but the BDR, the Zenith BDR, what you have to realize is you're still utilizing a device that is, we'll say, licensed and or managed by Zenith. Once you have stopped or archived the backups, it's going to stop sending anything to Zenith, and Zenith will start getting errors. That's when you're going to start wanting to go to the next step, in which case you're going to break ties with Zenith, and you're going to remove the portion of the BDR, the SAS agent, etc. that has hooks into their software. Like I said, once you've stopped or recreated a new job and you stop that job, it's going to stop sending anything off to Zenith.
Right, and can you talk a little bit, Tom, about what we've seen partners do where they've taken this to the next logical step of removing all the Zenith hooks and software? And
oh yeah, and unfortunately, if you want to upgrade, and this kind of hits on the last a couple of questions ago, you really need to, and once you're done with the Zenith relationship, once you've decided you're no longer going to deal with Zenith, or at least for backups, there's nothing that says, and I have a couple of BDRs, I've worked on a couple of people's BDRs, partners BDRs, that they've converted to fully what we call a ShadowProtect standalone through eFolder with our licensing and our upgrades and everything, but they put the SAS agent back on because they use Zenith, or in this case Continuum, as an MSP. And all they do is they verify the health of the machines. That's totally up to you and your customer. As far as what you're going to do is you're going to have to completely remove the SAS agents. You're going to have to, and if you're going to do this, we can do this with with our assistants and keep you're going to start a new chain with us. You're going to start a new backup with us, and then you're going to decide it's time to upgrade. So you're going to have to, at that point, do the forklift. You're going to have to remove the Zenith software and add in new software, the current versions. But we can do it without destroying that chain or starting over again. So that's not a problem.
Okay, so I mean, I guess just in principle, the idea is you can take this whole discussion one step further and preserve the hardware investment and reuse the appliance, but you basically start with a clean slate. And you license, at that point, you license the StorageCraft, ShadowProtect licenses from eFolder, and you implement a different rate plan, which I'll go through in a moment here. And it's probably a good time to do that real quick. So, if you, let me just advance here real quick. So what Tom just referred to, we kind of internally call it ShadowProtect standalone. But the basic idea is eFolder has two different rate plans for ShadowProtect deployments, and the first one is what we call eFolder Cloud for ShadowProtect. So this is where you're either using your own BDR appliance or you're repurposing, in this case, a legacy Zenith appliance. This is the rate plan you put on, eFolder Cloud for ShadowProtect, and the ShadowProtect licenses are $25 per month per server. And then the way the rate plan works is it's $40 per site, and that includes 150 gigs of storage in the eFolder cloud. And then additional gigs go for anything over that go from 29 cents down to 20 cents based upon your total volume. And this is this volume rate schedule down here, down below. Now, what's important to know is that every location or BDR appliance you have deployed gets aggregated into a logical pool. So your larger clients are going to balance out your smaller clients, and you only get into these overage scenarios when you exceed the aggregate total. So this is the rate plan. If you went and did a clean slate on the appliance but wanted to reuse it, this is the rate plan you would put on. Now, if you wanted to forklift upgrade and remove that appliance and put in a new eFolder BDR completely, you have a choice. You would buy an eFolder, you would buy the hardware appliance from eFolder, and the rate plan is slightly different. The only difference is really the ShadowProtect license is $20 per server per month, per protected server per month, and then the way the cloud storage and services work is the same, $40 per BDR appliance, 29 cents down to 20 cents. So that's kind of, if we kind of go back to, if you go back to, the decision tree we were talking about here earlier, you have different choices at your disposal. And then, we've kind of reviewed the BDR Rescue Program is going to be 15 cents a gig. And then if you go to either to repurpose that hardware, or, you would go to eFolder Cloud for ShadowProtect, or if you put in just a net new BDR appliance, they just reviewed the kind of the way the costs work there. So I did want to go back. There was another follow-on question about the eFolder Continuity Cloud. Dave wants to know, you said 150 per recovery per client, and that's it's not. It's 100. It's when you invoke the eFolder Continuity Cloud, you can do recoveries of anything that's a ShadowProtect backup, anything that's an Aperture backup, and you can even actually bring up a server and restore and work on data that's been from our eFolder backup for files, the file and folder service. You can do all of those services in the Continuity Cloud. The way the Continuity Cloud pricing works, again, is you pay a fixed fee per week. And so the medium node costs $150 per week. It's not per client. It's not per recovered server. It is for the capacity that you get with the medium node, and it's $150 wholesale. So you could recover 2 different clients in the Continuity Cloud node. You could recover 2 different clients with 2 different servers in that node. The thing that's going to drive you from a medium node to a larger node is just the total number of servers you're going to be doing in a cloud recovery. So that's, again, so ask your salesperson for details on the Continuity Cloud pricing, but what makes it unique is there's no higher per gig fee every day of the year. You only pay for it when and if you need it, and it's a fixed wholesale fee to you, independent of your client deployments, number of clients or number of servers. You basically need to provision the right amount of, you just need to provision the right size of Continuity Cloud node based upon the number of servers you're going to be doing in the recovery. So let's go back to the Q&A log. Let's see here. So Dave has a question. I missed something. We need new licenses for the BDR Rescue Program. Is that only if we wipe and reload? So if you are using the BDR Rescue Program, 15 cents a gig, you're going to be using your existing ShadowProtect licenses you have through Zenith in that deployment scenario. If you wipe and reload, you would then need to reinitiate ShadowProtect licensing, and you can license them through eFolder, or you can go to StorageCraft directly. Let's see here. Just going through the Q&A log here. So Dave wants to know, a different Dave in this case, can this be used to repurpose a BDR that is not currently active with a client? So I guess this is more, the question is, can you reuse hardware? Can you reuse hardware? And I think the BDR Rescue Program, again, is designed for situations where you've already got it connected. You still have it connected and licensed through Zenith, right? But you want to have a secure offsite location that's an alternative, a plan B, whatever you want to call it, belt and suspenders. You want to have a plan B and have your data safely protected somewhere other than Zenith while you figure out your migration strategy. But if you have a clean, repurposed box that you want, then you would put eFolder Cloud for ShadowProtect. That's the rate plan you would utilize to properly deploy the eFolder services and the ShadowProtect software licensing. Let's see here. If you're not yet an eFolder partner, we will be reaching out to you to figure out if you want to get started. Let's see here. Just looking for questions that we haven't yet answered. Warren, I think we answered your question about StorageCraft licensing. Tom, can you talk a little bit about what automated test processes exist to assure the backups on-site and off-site are good? How does that work under the BDR Rescue Program?
The easiest first test after you've done a backup is to see if you can mount an image. So you pick a point in time, generally the last incremental that's done, and you see if you can mount it locally on the BDR. If you can mount it locally on the BDR, you've got a good chain, you've got good backups. And then, provided there's no error logs, no errors in the log from our software, the Online Backup Manager, then exactly what you had on the BDR is now in the cloud. And that's the first test, if you will, to verify the backup chain. After that, the other thing that we recommend, well, I shouldn't say we do recommend scheduled tests of the virtualization. One of the things with ShadowProtect, you get VirtualBox, which is the Oracle version of the software where you can actually virtualize a ShadowProtect image into a virtual environment for, we'll say, the server you're backing up is damaged or something happens to it and it goes down and they need to have it back up at DC or whatever. You would virtualize the latest image, bring it up on the BDR, and now you're back in operation. We can virtualize depending on the amount of hardware you have and how big the image is, we've been able to virtualize as little as 30 minutes tops and get you back up and running. I know when I was a partner and I managed a eFolder BDR and the Zenith BDRs, what I did was we would do monthly virtualizations of the critical servers for, just to make sure that they come up okay and in a, what would they call, a test environment. And then once a quarter, we would do a full-blown, bring down the other server, bring up the virtualization to see if we could get to the data and that the clients could connect okay. Those are really what the two ways to verify the chain and to test the backups.
Okay, and then a different question from Israr. He says, can we store data at our own data center, or does it have to go to the eFolder cloud?
Well, we can actually we have, and Ted can probably answer the financial side of it more than I can. We do have the ability with our software. You would pay us for our software, and we would set it up, and you can send those backups to your data center. You can do it in a multi-tenant fashion where you can have multiple BDRs sending to your, but that's all priced differently. But yes, that is something we can do. It's called a local server. We use the terms remote server for our data center, local server for your data center, or even a NAS on site, and local disk, which would be like a USB disk hung on the back end. You can do it to any one of those.
Right, and I think in the case of the BDR product line, so with the BDR Rescue Program, which was kind of the focus of today's webinar, that's not an option. Your only option is to send it to the eFolder cloud or not. And so it's a very low, highly competitive price. Limited set of functionality in terms of what you can do. Now, if you are utilizing eFolder BDR for ShadowProtect, you do have the ability to do kind of what you're describing is you do replication. So what some partners do is they put a very large eFolder BDR appliance in their own data center, and then they have their clients replicate to them instead of sending the offsites to the eFolder cloud. Sometimes they do both. And
most of them do both.
Yeah, I mean you can do both, and there's no extra cost other than that appliance that you need to have each appliance properly licensed. But as long as you're paying this $40 per month per appliance, you can replicate between the appliances. Another thing people will do is they'll do cross-site replication, so they'll have a single client with two different locations, and they'll replicate back and forth between the two appliances. And again, that replication capability is included in those $40 per month. Okay. Now the overage, of course, we're talking about here. That's really when you start to exceed 150 gigs per appliance in the eFolder cloud. So hopefully that just explains a little bit of additional details on how replication works as a feature and how it's licensed under the standard eFolder BDR for ShadowProtect. There was another question about, we talked a lot about the pricing structure for the continuity cloud, and there was a question on, what's the difference between a medium node and a large node. So the medium node has 4 compute cores, 32 gigs of RAM, and 3 terabytes of usable storage and 2 IP addresses. So, as I noted, if you don't need to move up to the large node unless you exceed that, and if you move to the large node, it's an 8-core compute environment with 96 gigs of RAM, 10 terabytes of usable storage, and 8 IP addresses. And that costs $450 a week wholesale. So again, it's independent of clients, it's independent of servers, it's either $150 or $450, and you pay by the week, you only pay for it when you need it, and all of these eFolder services we've talked about today can be leveraged in the Continuity Cloud environment. Let's see. Just going back to the Q&A log here. I got that one. I'm just making sure. Okay, I think we've answered all the questions. Tom, thank you very much for joining us for today's Expert Series webinar. And thank you to all of the eFolder partners and interested parties who joined us today. Hopefully this was an educational session for you all. This is Ted Hulsey with eFolder signing off. Look forward to seeing you on a future eFolder webinar. Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care now.